Senator Malcolm Roberts is demanding an apology from Infected Blood Australia and myself, Charles Mackenzie. G'day. Well, recently the Campaign for Victims of Australia's Deadliest Medical Scandal posted this, which is what the Senator found offence at. It is a poster or meme, and it's there of Malcolm Roberts saying, "I didn't do a thing to help victims of contaminated blood transfusions." And did you know that hepatitis C contaminated blood transfusions, which were distributed in the main before the 2000s, accounts for Australia's deadliest ever medical scandal? And in fact, contaminated blood is Australia's deadliest medical scandal. There was also HIV in the 1980s that infected Australians. But the bigger issue in terms of casualties and in terms of number of victims is hepatitis C from blood transfusions. Now, the reason that we shared this is because we've had a lot of our members, and including myself actually, write to Malcolm Roberts asking him to speak up for victims of Australia's deadliest medical scandal. You know, contaminated blood scandals happened all around the world. It was a global scandal. There were legal investigations in Canada, that's a Commonwealth country, and they found massive wrongdoing from their Canadian Red Cross and actually removed them from the management of their blood supply. And our Australian Red Cross continue managing our blood supply because there's been no legal investigation, even though they've been engaging in cover-up and even though they knowingly gave contaminated blood to patients. So what happened was, we've got people who are absolutely desperate and dying in our group, okay? And I myself, I have led the group for many years because I was healthier than the other members of our group. Well, unfortunately, now my health's failing, and to give you an example of my life, you know, most mornings I wake up to a migraine and vomiting. Today is a Sunday. I spent from 7:30 till midday vomiting, and I was having to put this stuff down, Maxilon, okay, which sometimes work, more than often it doesn't work. The better thing's medicinal cannabis, which I've run out of because it costs a bloody fortune, and I've put all my money into fighting this cause, and yeah, I can't afford it all the time. So they sort of ration I have to ration my being well, okay? So I vomit every day. Without anti-nausea drugs, I also sleep for about 1 or 2 hours per day, okay? And I will quite likely die. I was a contaminated blood victim as a child, and I've managed to stay alive all this time. I live a very healthy life. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't gamble. My only focus has been on staying alive and trying to get justice for kids like myself or former child patients like myself, because we were infected en masse by the Australian Red Cross and also this Australian company, Australia's first $100 billion company, CSL, okay? And so we've been asking Malcolm Roberts to speak up for us, and now he'd like an apology from me because I shared this. I won't be making an apology, Senator, and also a member of your staff, who I won't name, has also asked me to apologise, and I won't be apologising to them either. And the reason I won't be, although I believe in apologising if I've done the wrong thing, I think it's important that I do that, okay? I really would. But I won't be in this case, and I'll explain why. Now, back in July, we shared a post about our concern over indemnities for these COVID jab makers, okay? And the reason that we had concerns over indemnities is because people who were given haemophilia treatments in the 1980s and 90s were infected en masse with hepatitis C and HIV, and there have been 1,400 haemophilia deaths, okay? And the company that did that, CSL, also the Australian Red Cross, also provided the blood. They've been completely indemnified, even though we can prove that they knew that they were distributing contaminated blood products. But they don't have to do anything. They don't have to help any of the victims, okay? And 1,400 haemophiliacs have died, and their families go without. So we're very against indemnities because we think that companies that won't back their medicines, you know, should not be able to, walk away from their responsibilities. Now, back in July, after we shared that video on July 23rd, guess what? Before we'd ever had contact with Senator Malcolm Roberts, he wrote on our page. There it is. He wrote, "The indemnities are a disgrace." Good point, Malcolm. "Vaccine makers should stand behind their product or not sell it at all. And the Australian taxpayer should absolutely not be left with the bill." Now, that is the sort of language that we want to hear at Infected Blood Australia. So he wrote. He decided, we didn't ask him to, he wrote on our Instagram. So you'd think, okay, this bloke's got our attention. So what did we do? I replied and said, on that message, I said, Malcolm Roberts, for Australians who are given contaminated blood products like those with the bleeding disorder haemophilia, indemnities cost them everything. 1,750 haemophiliacs were given tainted blood and 1,400 have been killed, and survivors and their family can't access the kind of recompense routinely offered to the same kind of victims overseas. Why? Because of indemnities. Okay, so then we have one of our members, Sue, also write to Malcolm Roberts because he's commented on our Instagram page. We go, great, finally an Australian senator who looks like they might speak up. But no. I then wrote to him in October, and we'd had other members write to him, and still we didn't get a reply. Then, if I just check the date correctly, then incredibly in November, he went on a live with Isaac David and a chap called Joel Jamal. And I'll just play you what was said.
Australia. Yes. And we've got a group called Infected Blood Australia that doesn't get a voice to your case. But is there any way that we can start getting...
I don't know, Isaac, but if you put me in touch through my office,
yes,
you can put them in touch with us. We can
100%.
and hold the government accountable.
Okay, so that was it. That was on a live with Isaac David in November. I think it was earlier this month. And Malcolm Roberts said he didn't know about us. He hadn't heard about us. So who is the person who was using Senator Malcolm Roberts' account on the 3rd of July? Okay, presumably it might have been a member of staff or someone like that, not actually himself commenting maybe. Okay, there you go. There he was, there's the video, and there's his comment on the 3rd of July, right? So he comments on our Instagram page, and there's Sue, one of our members, Sue there, on the 3rd of July said, Senator Malcolm Roberts, when the federal government refuses to investigate the worst scandal in Australian history, okay, so on the 23rd of July, thousands of dead and dying victims are betrayed yet again. What is the government afraid of? CSL and the Red Cross knowingly infected people with contaminated blood. In my view, that is quite simply manslaughter. Not one legal investigation has ever been held. Why? This is the worst example of profits over people ever seen in Australia. Well said, Sue. So we basically put all this to Malcolm Roberts. I've sent him an email. I even put a complaint in October on his Instagram message to say, hey, is no one seeing all these letters and emails and contact that we've had, because we were hoping for you to stand up for us. And now I'm told that I have to apologise because the good senator and his member of staff, who will remain nameless, this member of staff actually spoke to Sue. Sue had written in again, and this member of staff replied and said, oh yeah, well, are you associated to this Charles Mackenzie Infected Blood Australia? Because we'd like an apology. He shared a post about how the senator never spoke up for victims of contaminated blood, and he said that's unfair because he wasn't in Parliament at the time when contaminated blood happened, and he said, you're talking about something that happened in the 80s and 90s. Well, child sex abuse might have happened decades ago too, but it's wrong. And so is actually knowingly delivering contaminated blood. That's why we need you to speak up. And the reason why we put a post out like this is because we're absolutely bloody desperate. I spend half my day bloody vomiting. I might be dead in a month. Who knows? I've got a brain scan coming next week. I've got so many doctor's appointments. I'm trying my best to stay alive here so I can fight on. If I die, I die. Okay? But we've got other people who are bedbound who lost their entire careers. These are professionals. We've got thousands of victims in Australia. If they were British, they'd be helped. If they were Canadian, they'd be helped. If they were French, if they were Irish. What could be more for Australia than this issue? Truly, especially in current times where the Australian government's been so willing to basically lock us down and take away our jobs and limit our freedoms, while all the while they're presiding over a health system that's covering up Australia's deadliest medical scandal, contaminated blood. Children were knowingly given contaminated blood products. My own blood donor, after they found out that my blood donor was infected, this is after I've basically rung the alarm. Do you know what I was able to prove? I was able to prove that they interviewed my blood donor, and then when they found out that he'd been a drug user, found out that he'd been in jail, found out that he'd lied on his statutory voluntary declaration form, you know, the thing you sign before you donate blood, he committed a crime. And you know what they did? They kept on taking blood from him, and they gave that to haemophiliacs with the bleeding disorder haemophilia. 1,400 having been killed. This is in the 1990s. And we can't get a single politician to stand up for us, speak up for us. But now I'm being asked to apologise to the good senator. He's asking for an apology, and so is his member of staff, because they're offended. Now, I think that some confusion has occurred. I can't believe that Senator Malcolm Roberts is part of this woke. He's caught this sort of woke cancel culture disease. You want me to apologise? I pay your way, mate. You serve us. It's not the other way around. We're bloody desperate. Okay, our lives are coming to an end. We've got people dying right now. We've had people die in the time we've been writing to you. Honestly, I wasn't looking to offend you. I was looking to get your support. We want anybody to speak up for us, any politician at all, before we die. That's what our intentions were. You commented on our page in July. We took that as meaning that you'd be open to maybe speaking up for us. As we've said, it would just take 30 seconds for a senator like Malcolm Roberts to ask the government when they'll be holding a royal commission into Australia's deadliest medical scandal. There have been royal commissions into contaminated blood in Canada. They've been in Ireland, and now we have the UK's largest legal investigation into their infected blood scandal, which has implications for us here in Australia because the British and Australian governments worked in tandem on the creation of our blood supply. Okay, so the British are almost as guilty as our Australian authorities. That's all we need, Senator. I wasn't trying to offend you, and I understand that you may very well have not been the one that made that comment on our Instagram page. That might have been a member of your staff, or also understand that you might well have forgotten. Such would be the huge influx of sort of messages that you receive and messages that you have to share. I get it. I live the same life. We've been inundated. I don't always get to every message as quickly as we'd like to, okay? But I don't get paid. I'm not here to represent anyone outside of me doing this voluntarily. I don't get paid to represent anyone. I'm doing this because I've lost really good mates, okay, to this. And some of them are former child victims. They're no longer with us, okay? Now, for me, this is a fight to the death. I'm a peaceful man. I don't mean anything. I mean that I will most likely die during this fight, okay? Unless some miracle occurs. And so will other members of our group. So what we're doing here is this really is an appeal for justice, Senator. We must make sure that nothing like this, nothing like contaminated blood ever happens again. And we must make sure that if patients are harmed by their healthcare, there not be cover-ups and there not be deceit, and that they get the help that they need. We're very reasonable here, Senator, and we really need your help. No hard feelings, honestly. We understand. But please, Senator, instead of asking me to apologise, could you just do the opposite? Because I've had that my whole life. People asking me to do that, apologise for my existence. Please, Senator, please. The Red Cross called me a liar for bloody 30 years, as did this CSL. I'm telling the truth. All I need you to do is take 30 seconds and ask the government when they'll be holding a Royal Commission of Inquiry into Australia's deadliest medical scandal, contaminated blood. Thank you.